Keir Starmer and his administration should be congratulated, because I don't think many of us, and especially not me, several months ago thought this was going to be possible to get a real deal with the US, and to have pulled it off and to be the first is actually quite an achievement. Obviously, the devil will be in the details, and we'll see what's in the agreement as the news comes out today. But I think there should be some scope for some increased US-UK trade, especially in areas important to the UK, and I imagine important to the US. Those could range, of course, from technology transactions. I think autos and steel will be a significant part of that. Given the announcements over the weekend on tariffs on film, I would expect and hope that film exports from the UK to the US would be part of that deal as well.
Very interesting in terms of some of the details that could come through on this deal. Just talk us through, given your deep experience, Matthew, how these deals come to pass. I mean, this has been more than 5 years in the making. If we just get a framework, if we just get a memorandum of understanding, would your take that this is a significant achievement still hold?
I think it's a significant achievement in that even getting to this framework point, no previous government has been able to achieve. But of course, once there's a framework, it requires a lot more work. And frankly, I think a framework or some kind of short-term relief with a pathway to a more lasting deal is the more likely outcome here. But just achieving a effective stay of execution from the ever-increasing U.S. tariffs on international goods would preserve the UK some economic headroom compared to many others. And so I would look at that, getting that protective shield of a framework agreement and a hold on future tariffs to at least give businesses some certainty for planning, maybe not for 5 years, but at least for a year or two.
How disappointing would it be if actually there is some kind of framework understanding, but it doesn't include the rolling back of those baseline tariffs, either the 25% on steel or the 10% baseline tariff? That would surely be very disappointing if that were not included.
Yes, I would agree with that. I mean, especially the 25%. And I would hope that the 10% would drop as well. The U.S. has always said that they look at the UK differently. They look at the UK differently from the European Union, where there is a much higher degree of tension and kind of angst and frustration between both sides. So I would expect to see the UK, exempted from that 10% as part of the so-called special relationship.
There are some investors who have been speaking to Bloomberg this morning suggesting that the optimism for them is looking at a deal between the US and UK and using that potentially as a framework for how Japan, South Korea, India may forge deals with the US. Is that the right way to be thinking about it, or will this be very idiosyncratic to the UK?
Well, I think that's right. I mean, it should be the framework for those closest U.S. allies, those closest U.S. defense allies, and the ones where the U.S. wants to make the most inroads, such as India. That being said, I would expect the sectors to be incredibly different. For example, the UK does not want U.S. food exports and agriculture exports into the market, where India might be a different story. Certain other areas such as energy, where the U.S. wants to export more oil and gas to the UK, that could definitely be a sort of specialized thing compared to India, which doesn't want to pay the U.S. prices on energy, oil and gas.
In terms of how easy it is, though, in terms of kind of copy and pasting these sorts of deals, if you say that the UK, has always been seen in a kind of separate basket to perhaps other countries or the EU in particular, how easy is it really to replicate anything that's agreed with Britain with other countries?
I think it'll be a challenge in some aspects, but the one thing it'll show us is how the Trump administration is willing to operate, where they're willing to cut deals, how they're willing to do it, what are their interests here. Because to be blunt, the Trump administration has been all over the room on what it really wants from its trading partners, what it's really willing to concede on. Is this a tariff war for the sake of leverage, or is it a true believer's war that tariffs are going to save the U.S. economy? So once we start seeing deals emerge and trends from those, then at least that gives us some predictability on what the intentions are of the Trump administration, if they know themselves.
What is the number one issue your clients are raising with you right now?
Uncertainty, I think, and I don't think that's a should be a shock. I think the uncertainty of what's going to happen day to day in the supply chains, in the pricing, in the markets, access to those markets. I mean, that day to day uncertainty is real. It's being felt, and it's freezing people's decision making.